Welcome to Caribbean Thought. Oops, I didn't realize I had that. Welcome to Caribbean Thought. Let me close this. I have a very interesting topic to deal with today. Here. I have a very interesting topic to talk with you guys about today. One of the things that I have a very interesting topic to talk to you guys about today. I want to talk because the last class, and good evening to all of you. I think how many people we have in the class so far? We have about 10. The last class we started to trace. We started to trace Caribbean thinking, Caribbean works, as a way to revisit Caribbean history. There's a word that I'm going to introduce in this course, which I don't believe it was ever introduced in this course before. The issue of the cosmopolitan or cosmopolitanism. Cosmopolitanism, and I want you to write that word, C-O-S-M-O-S, so C-O-S-M-O-P-O-L-I-T-A-N-I-S-M. That's not on the syllabus, but I read widely. I do a lot of research while reading Homi Bhabha, again, as I prepare for this lecture. I realized that Homi Bhabha deals with the issue of, there's a chapter in Homi Bhabha's book. Well, it's Homi Bhabha, who is from India, wrote the book, The Location of Culture, very powerful book that I think and she's a literary genius. But she deals with topics such as anthropology and the issue of cosmopolitan. Was Bob Marley a cosmopolitan? Am I a cosmopolitan? What is the cosmopolitan? Who is, when we think about Caribbean and Caribbean identity, who is the cosmopolitan? How does the cosmopolitan feature? And in the preface of her book, she writes, looking back, moving forward, notes on vernacular cosmopolitanism. And this is taken from The Location of Culture, Bhabha, from The Location of Culture. Again, she writes, looking back, moving forward, notes on vernacular cosmopolitanism. And I'm going to add that to the syllabus and add a question for, and probably might want to interact, but we're not going to delve in this too much. But what is cosmopolitanism? And why does Homi Bhabha begin with cosmopolitanism in the law? Notice the title of the book. The title of the book is and I said to, and by the way, I didn't say it to you, to this class, but to other class, when you read a piece of material, the cover of the book is important. You don't judge a book by its cover, but the cover tells you a lot about the author and the thing you're going to come. It's the location of culture, but more so, why the location of culture? Where is culture, in other words? Where is culture? Where is the center? Where is the center? Where is the center? Where are things happening? So, of course, definitely notice the location of culture. And in this book, she talks a lot about the periphery and the center. The periphery and the center. Okay? So, the periphery and the center. And so when she talks, she's asking the question about the location of culture. The issue of culture is very in Caribbean thought, and in Caribbean, we talk about culture. Culture is very important, way of life of a people. But of course, that's the raw definition. Culture goes beyond that, but there are problems with culture. But she starts the book by looking back, moving forward, notes on vernacular cosmopolitanism. And when you begin to read this particular section of her book, it gives you an understanding as to why she would begin with that, because she starts with her own experience. I think one student in one of the classes I taught said, critiqued or challenged me, said, oh, the professor is always talking about himself. Oh, the professor is always talking about himself. And I say to you, the professor, when you read a book, when you exegete scripture, you begin with who? The author. Yes? You begin with the person writing. What is the context of the person writing? What are his influences? So the facilitator of this course, what are his influences? How does he speak and connect with the experiences of Caribbean and this? In fact, what gives him the authority to facilitate this course? Him living in America over the last 10 years or 12 years. What gives him, and okay, but then we talk about the Caribbean diaspora. And we ask, what is the connection between the Caribbean? What is the connection between the Caribbean? I'm going to turn off my notifications because they are constantly interfering while I'm teaching in the class. Get notifications and apps on the sidebar. No, enough is enough. There we go. So we talk about what is the connection of the people, the cosmopolitan. Where is culture? Homi Bhabha starts by saying, I was not one of Midnight's children. I was not one of Midnight's children. I wonder what you mean. Notice how she speaks in poetry. And she actually has a note. She noted, and the good thing about her, when she writes, you can go back to the notes. So it says note 2, and you can check, what does she mean by that? And then you can check what she means by that. That's the conclusion note. She has notes for days. Where is the note dissemination? Here we go. Oh, okay. By the way, I need to add to the reading for class, V.S. Naipaul, The Middle Passage, Impressions of 5 Societies. Again, V.S. Naipaul wrote a book called The Middle Passage, Impressions of 5 Societies, British, French, and Dutch in the West Indies and South America. And you got, and I think I added, it may be on the list already, I'm not sure, but if not, please check the syllabus, ensure that this book is on there. V.S. Naipaul, The Middle Passage. The book is called The Middle Passage, Impressions of 5 Societies, British, French, and Dutch in the West Indies. We're not going to delve too much into this book. I'm just I just wanted to bring something to your attention. In July, when we start the last 4 weeks in the class, what I want to do is, or next week, I want to lift up some books written by Frantz Fanon, Homi Bhabha, so on and so forth. And we want to do a book review. We're going to do, so not this month, not this week or next week, but 2 weeks from now, Shanta remind me, we are part of the assignment is to do a book review. How do you do book review? But we talk about that, but I want you to do a book review. Some of you will do Homi Bhabha. Some of you will do Frantz Fanon. Some of you will do Nelson and Evelyn Keith, that talked about the social democratic origins of Jamaica. This book here. I don't know if it's on the syllabus, but there were professors at Temple University, and they wrote the book, The Social Origins of Democratic Socialism in Jamaica, their husband and wife. A very good, exceptional book. We will deal with them in the class later on. So you could do that. And there's another book that deals with structural adjustment, which is this, if you want to learn about structural adjustment, by Ramesh Ramsawan from Trinidad. So those books are quite important. And of course, that other book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty, and I can never find my book when I need it. But we will get to it in a second. But she said, I was not one of Midnight's children. My belated birth, some years after the midnight hour, that marked India's tryst with freedom, absented me from the epochal narrative or the epochal narrative. I was not there to witness the emergence of India and Pakistan, born together from a cleft womb, still as restless in relation to each other as the day they stepped into the harsh light. In other words, she said she wasn't a midnight, and he said he wasn't Midnight's children, meaning that he wasn't born, he wasn't there, and we weren't midnight. We weren't there. Well, I don't know. We weren't there in 1962 when Jamaica, when the coming of the Caribbean. We weren't there. And then Homi Bhabha is saying that I wasn't there. I wasn't there. My child, but then she talked about at some point in her history, she left. Oh, sorry, he left. But he left India. He said, my childhood was filled with accounts of India's struggle for independence, its complicated histories of subcontinental cultures, caught in that deadly embrace of imperial power and domination that always produces an uncomfortable residue of enmity and amity. In a small way, my early life was caught on the crossroads that marked the end of an empire. The post-colonial drive towards the new horizons, the new nation, new people, new nations of a third world of free nations. Now we don't say third anymore, but third world of free nations. The Bandung spirit embroiled at times with a desire for the wayward modernist art and literature of Europe that was so much a part of the world of the westernized Indian bourgeoisie. I need to say this again. I need to listen to this. This is quite important. This particular what I'm reading here. She said, my early life, he said, my early life was caught on the crossroads that marked the end of empire. The post-colonial drive towards the new horizons of a third world of free nation. The Bandung spirit embroiled at times with a desire for the wayward modernist art and literature of Europe that was so much a part of the world of the westernized Indian bourgeoisie. Talk about the westernized man, the westernized man and woman, the westernized Indian bourgeoisie, the westernized Jamaican bourgeois, Caribbean. He said, growing up in Bombay as a middle-class party, you know, in Indian, if you study the Indian society, it's a caste or a class system, same thing, class, caste, same difference. Middle class, Parsi, a member of a small Zoroastrian Persian minority in a predominantly Hindu and Muslim context. She was, again, growing up in Bombay as a middle-class Parsi. He was a member of a small Zoroastrian Persian minority in predominantly Hindu and Muslim context. So when you look at Pakistan and India, there was always this dynamic between Hinduism and that Muslim. He said, I never imagined that I would live elsewhere. In other words, outside of India or Pakistan. Years later, I asked myself, and I say to you, I never imagined I would live outside of Jamaica. Never did, not once. I asked myself what it would be like to live without the unresolved tensions between cultures and countries, that have become the narratives of my life. The tension between cultures and countries that have become the narratives of my life and the defining characteristic of my work. Setting out from Bombay in the 1970s to study English at Oxford University was in many ways the culmination, the hallmark of an Indian middle-class trajectory, where formal education and high culture concluded in emulating the canons of elite English taste or what we knew of it, and conforming to its customs and comforts. My everyday life, however, provided quite a different inheritance. It was lived in that rich cultural mix of languages and lifestyle that most cosmopolitan Indian cities celebrate and perpetuate in their vernacular, vernacular is ordinary language. In their vernacular is what? The ordinary language of people. In their vernacular existence, the ordinary language, the language of commonality. Bombay, Hindustani, Parsi, Gujarati, Mongrel, Marathi, all held in a suspension of Welsh, missionary, accented English peppered with an Anglo-Indian patois that was sometimes cast aside for American slang, picked up from the movies or popular music. I'm going to read that again, and I want you guys to just close your eyes as you read it. And with, you know, I went to the dentist today to do some dental work. I'm not done, I have to go back. And while I was at the dentist, the dental assistant I think it was an Indian establishment, the persons that owned the dental clinic or the dental establishment, they seem to be of Indian ancestry. And I was having a conversation with my nurse, or whatever her name is, whatever. I was having a conversation with her, and she said, we were talking. I said, "You're from India? Oh, where are you from? You're from India, Packet. Where are you from?" She said, "Yes, I'm from India." How you know? I said, "The accent." But she sound, when you travel and you expose yourself, I mean, you learn so much about different people and things. I said to her, "You get to notice things, but and the experience and how Jamaican experience and Caribbean experience connects with that Indian experience too, because they were colonized by the Brits." And you talk about, they were doing a project on the Caribbean, they were doing a project, they were trying to make all these countries British, all these countries with an English identity. Okay, but listen to what she said on page 10 of the preface. He said, setting out from Bombay in the 1970s to study English at Oxford was in many ways the culmination of an Indian middle-class trajectory where formal education and high culture concluded in emulating the canons of elite English. In other words, you know, when you go through Caribbean culture, when you go through the former colonial people or people of the Commonwealth or people who were formerly colonized. And by the way, she talked about the Bandung spirit. You know what the Bandung spirit is? If you guys, Bandung, there was a Bandung conference where countries where nationalists were all coming together. They used to have all the countries come together to promote nationalism and all of that, and there was going to be from the Bandung conference, there was a big spirit of unity and drive towards nationalism and all of that, free nations, free third world people. So she talks about looking back, you know, I referenced that. So Bandung, when she said Bandung, B-A-N-D-U-N-G, Bandung spirit, she is speaking about an experience. And if we don't read widely about it, you will never know what Bandung is. I never knew what Bandung is until I went to University of Pennsylvania and started reading Homi Bhabha. So that's okay. Okay. And I'm a career student. I tell you that. A career academic. The Bandung spirit, and I was writing neoliberalism and doing studies about globalization and so on. And then I discovered the Bandung Conference and this Bandung spirit as part of Pan-Africanism, nationalism, so on and so forth. Okay, but she said, well, remember, in a way, the title of her book is The Location of Culture. In other words, where is culture? She's a post-colonial she's a post-colonial scholar, okay, who's coming from an experience from experience where her society was colonized by the Brits, yes, and okay, where people had a dream of a new world, a free third world. At the time, it was called third world. Now we are now using language that moves away from that. Okay, a free nations. That's the Bandung spirit. Okay, the Bandung spirit, the post-colonial drive towards what? The new horizons of a third world. Sorry, no, I remember we're not saying that anymore. Of a global south. We use the word global south, of a world of free nations. The Bandung spirit embroiled, embroiled at times, with a desire for the wayward modernist art and literature. So in other words, she's quite, by the way, just so you know, when you talk about vernacular cosmopolitanism, it's quite oxymoronic, isn't it? And I'm going to talk about the oxymoronic, the oxymoron of cosmopolitanism. But if I ask you, what is the cosmopolitan? By the way, if you are I hope that you guys do readings in cosmopolitanism. But if you have not, then you will do it in this course. If you read this book deals with that. I don't know if you can get a copy of this book either. Okay, very good book, Homi Bhabha. It's on the syllabus. I think it's available in Jamaica and online. It's available in ebook form as well. But he leaves. He wasn't there to witness the dawning of a new day for India. Okay, this new independent free country. He left. And he talked about how his studies culminated into this northward movement, this travel, cosmopolitanism, the cosmos. When you want to define, when you're reading a particular text, especially an English text, and the word, say for example, you see the word cosmopolitanism, that's a technical word within anthropology and post-colonialism, okay, and globalization as well, but cosmopolitanism. But if you are following the line of logic that we are on, I say to you guys that in this course, well, I won't go for it. If you follow the logic and the line of logic that we are on, then I remember I left, I went somewhere else just now. I say to you, the Caribbean is an invention of the 20th century. And a student in Caribbean theology said, no, we're not an invention. And I said, of course, Gervin talks about, and Meeks and et al. Talked about the Caribbean being the invention, the Caribbean being the coming into being in the 1960s, in the 1900s. That drive in the night that led to our independence, okay? The Caribbean as an invention, as nation states. So that's what he means when in the Caribbean Reader, when he talked about the Caribbean is an invention of the 20th century. Okay, but part of that invention has been a project that started in the 1600s. Okay, which culminated into the Caribbean and former colonized countries gaining independence, the ability to self-determine. Yes, the gain of universal suffrage and certain human rights. But when I talk about work, when you talk about influence, we talk about how civilizations have influenced other civilizations. And I said, when you study Caribbean and Caribbean theology, you can start from the invention. I go as far back as the 1600s, but even beyond that, I go as far as beginning here. When this is where I begin. But you know, when you begin here, the more at the doctoral studies. This is when I started doing this. Okay, I'm doing my doctorate now, and some of those things, and I'm doing the foundations of knowledge and the hegemony of faith, and everything that you learn and everything you experience, you bring to bear in your learning. Nothing hides itself from me. Everything is part of the learning experience. But what the point I'm making is cosmopolitanism. What do you hear when you hear cosmopolitanism? You hear cosmos, the cosmos, yes? The cosmos, cosmos, the world. You see how you were dissect cosmos, okay? Cosmos, and then we talk about politics, politan, okay? Yes? The dynamics of that world. The person within that, the travel, the human, the individual. It involves travel. So of course you're going to talk about cosmopolitanism. In other words, okay, what is and we talk about the location of culture. And again, please remember, what is the connection between the cosmopolitan to his location of culture? Oh my God. What is the connection? That is important. What is my connection to Jamaica? I will be considered a cosmopolitan. But anyways, moving beyond that, this point is important. Listen to what Homi Bhabha says. Homi Bhabha talks about the fact that he said, setting out from Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, in 2002, and I was reading a book about writing. I was writing, I helped to teach a writing course here in the US. I teach a writing course here in the US. I facilitate a writing course. And I was working with a group of individuals in terms of developing their writing, developing their writing, especially among, okay, and I'm going to make a very important point as it relates to this particular issue. In terms of writing, well, it left me. But let's forget, I can't remember what the point it will come back to me. But anyways, Homi Bhabha said that setting from the 1970s to study English, she left. So I left Jamaica in 2009, started studying at Penn, University of Penn in 2010. I did not get into University of Penn, and I got into Temple University. One of my friends said, why don't you apply to UPenn? I'm like, please, UPenn, that's an Ivy League school. I would never get into that school. No, go ahead and apply. I applied. I was always a writer. I loved writing I don't know why. I was just always writing. I write for the Gleaner. I would always write. So I wrote an essay and applied. I got into UPenn. UPenn is an Ivy League, one of the 7 Ivy Leagues in the US, with Harvard, Columbia, Princeton. And that's not why I wear this shirt. I didn't even know I was going to talk about Penn today. But I'm going somewhere with this, because I'm talking about Homi Bhabha's, talking about the cosmopolitan. And it's important that we talk about the cosmopolitan, because I'm going to raise an issue. Somebody challenged me this week, about something that was happening in the world, in another part of the world, other than Haiti and in Jamaica, in the US. Okay, Juneteenth, the emancipation of slavery, or because slaves were free. Remember, the North and the South, some slaves got freedom, but before others, and why the North and the South, and while the other slaves, it took them some time for them to get the news, or to once the proclamation got to them, then so Juneteenth, which is June 19th, is a celebration of the proclamation. They were already freed. Some were free, but not all. Not all. Okay, because of the Civil War and the dispute between the North and the South. Okay, the North wanted to keep their slaves. I mean, wanted to was promoting slavery, wanted to get rid of their slaves, while the others did not want to free. So of course, that's a problem. When you in a society, when you have a kind of society like that, that creates problem for society, this dividedness. That is why it's good for us to understand culture and to learn about culture and position. But the point I'm making, somebody challenged me about this issue of cosmopolitanism and Samaritanism, and I will bring that up later on in the course. But you notice the Greek influence in English. You notice the English. You notice as civilization progressed, there is this influence. So that is why if we speak English, the English vernacular, and the English vernacular is corrupted by Latin and Greek, why not study Latin and Greek too? But anyways, setting out from Bombay in the 1970s. So sorry, back to the story. I applied for Penn, I got in, but I only got in, they said, based on the essay I wrote. Based on the essay I wrote. I didn't give them my University of the West. I went to UE, but I didn't do much. I only did 1 year at UE. I did a Master's of Philosophy, and I did okay. And but you know what? All of this stuff I gave to UPenn, I got it from Jamaica Theological Seminary. Yes, my education, my transcripts and everything from Jamaica. That's where all my. I didn't do a GRE. I didn't do a SAT. All I did was to apply and write an essay. They loved the essay, which is part of my book today. They loved it. They said, "Oh my God, yes, please come here." But the point I want to talk about is how I'm not promoting myself. I am talking about cosmopolitanism and culture and how our culture is important. We talk about C.L.R. James last week, talk about what opportunities the West Indian man have. We have opportunities. But because the West Indian is so prolific and so profound, no matter how they try to keep down the West Indian, through debt and structural adjustment and through a discriminatory immigration policy, and whatever the case might be, the Caribbean man, the West Indian man, there's always this little but Talawanese. We talk about critical race theory and people like Dana Berry White talking about, and critical race theory is now re-looking at slavery, re-looking at the past, looking at the resistance, looking at the fight. But some people will think, oh, you went to Penn, wow, that's an Ivy League school. It's actually the top 20 school in the world, or top 10. It's between the top 10 and the top 20 in the school in the world. And they have one. Donald Trump went to my school. When I was graduating, some of the most famous movie stars and politicians was in my graduation class. But here am I rubbing shoulders without no GRE or SAT. But yet still we talk about language. And then I go around, people say, wow, you speak the language, you speak English so well. And with pride, I say, oh, we speak English in Jamaica. With pride, you know, that I still have that colonization. I'm colonized to think that if I speak anything other than English, something is wrong. Okay. But I'm going somewhere. Follow me. Setting out from Bombay in the 1970s to study English at Oxford University. Oxford is the number one. I think it's number two now. Cambridge surpassed it. In many ways, It represented the culmination of an Indian middle class trajectory. You notice it represents what? It represents the culmination, the hallmark, the zenith of an Indian middle class trajectory. Where, so the trajectory of someone that's a part of the middle class in India, or part of the, who is exposed, or the part of the middle class in Jamaica, or part of the middle class in the Trinidad, or whatever the case might be. Who's, you went to Campion College, yes, Campion College, and you went to Campion College. Who put up their hand? Go. Somebody went to Campion College? Somebody have a question? I'm going to wrap up in 1 minute. No, I mean, not end the class. I'm going to take a break in. If I go beyond 7:55, you are free to interrupt me, okay? Because I have a way of talking. But listen to this. Well, let me read this. So setting out from Bombay in the 1970s to study English at Oxford was in many ways the culmination of an Indian middle-class trajectory where formal education and high culture concluded in emulating the canons of elite English. Emulating what? The canons of scripture, the canon of English taste. In other words, it signaled for the English, for the colonial man who is who's traveling from the global north, south to the global north, to take up English at Oxford. It's like it's an achievement. Okay, it's as if you have arrived. You will take on more of that English identity, and then when you go back to your country, you go back as the coordinate English. The coordinate English. The coordinate, and then there's something, the issue of privilege when you go outside of your culture to one of those European countries and even go to school to one of those countries, or people, you are seen different because you went to a school that is part of the establishment, one of the Ivy Leagues, and we wear it and we boast up with it as if nothing other. Okay, that's part of privilege. But even myself, can I escape that privilege? The way in which we are. Yes, question from somebody. Someone had their hand up. I don't remember who it was. Who was it that had somebody had their hand up? People can't speak. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Somebody had their hand up. Who is it? Okay, well, I only have 3 minutes left before the break, so let me hurry up. I'm going to wrap up here. She said that anyway, she went to, but you guys got the point I'm making. My everyday life, however, provided quite a different inheritance. So, here is it that he achieved, he said that he's moving, he went to Oxford, got into Oxford. It was like, the achievement of something great. Indian middle-class trajectory where formal education and high culture, notice the word high culture, high class. We use that word in the Caribbean a lot, in English cultures, in the Commonwealth, high culture. In other words, you're going to England to the high culture as if there is high, middle, and low. Right? But anyways, he used high in brackets, high culture, concluded in emulating the canons of elite English taste. Emulating the canons of English taste. So you have arrived and you're even more exposure. Or it's as if once you get there to Oxford, once you get to England, once you get to the US, once you get to France, once you get to Spain, you have achieved, you have realized, or you have, and even the immigration system, you have to have ties, you have to have connections, but in a sense, you have to assimilate the culture. You have arrived. You have you fit the bar. You have been able to transform the people. The man from the global south has been able to transform himself in such a way, okay, in such a way that he has now reached the zenith, the ultimate. He has now reached where the mother country, the first world country, the post-industrial country, so to speak. My everyday life, however, but listen to what he said, and he talked about English taste. My everyday life, however, provided quite a different inheritance. It was lived in that rich cultural mix of languages and lifestyles that most. What was the culture of Homi Bhabha in England? He said that my everyday life, however, provided quite a different inheritance. It was lived in that rich cultural mix of languages and lifestyle that most cosmopolitan Indian cities celebrated and perpetuate in their vernacular existence. All held in a suspension of Welsh missionary accent, English peppered with an Anglo-Indian patois. How are you doing? How are you? That was sometimes cast aside for American slang picked from the movies or popular music. And some people force themselves to speak like that. And then when you come back when you go back to your location of culture, when you go back to your location of culture, Jamaica.
So it seems you have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, man, I'm saying it seems you have a question. Your hand is raised.
Oh my God, I thought it was you guys. Okay. Learning to work with the contradictory strain of language. Anyways, so I will stop. I'm going to stop there because we are going to pick back up with Homi Bhabha, because I am telling you, she talks about the Trinidadian is a cosmopolitan. The Trinidadian is a cosmopolitan. He is a natural anarchist. The cosmopolitan. He is a natural anarchist. He writes, he is a natural anarchist who has never been able to take the eminent at their own valuation. He is without the greater corruption of sanctimoniousness and can never make pleas for intolerance in the name of piety. And as I wrap up this, I'm going to take a break right in 1 second. I will because when we talk about wow. There was a point I wanted to make, and I cannot find the document that I had with me. Here we go. There we go. I made a note that I wanted to, just before we wrap up. We're going to wrap up. We're going to take a break at 8 and come back at 8:15. And then when we come back at 8:15, let me share when we come back at 8:15, we are going to continue with this. Okay. Let me just do, where do we do this? Where is the slideshow button? Slideshow. By the I don't think I had sent you guys this. Did I send you guys the outline? Probably, I'm not sure. Slideshow. Resume slideshow. Oops. No, this is not the slideshow. Whoa. Why? What is going on? I said slideshow from the beginning. Okay. Now, so when we come back from the break, we will continue to delve now into what we were doing last week. We started by looking at Arawaks to Africans, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. Then we talked a little bit about Descartes, 1596 to 1650, Cogito ergo sum. We visited him a little bit when we talk about critical thinking, okay? But as we begin the study of Caribbean thought and Caribbean thinking, we want to talk about the phenomenology of the mind and that mind-body dualism. We talked about that in Caribbean theology yesterday. But I want Kant and history. If you don't remember anything, you remember what's written here. He's from 1724 to 1804. What was happening between 1724 and 1804? Okay, what was that before the Reformation or after the Reformation? Where was the Caribbean? Or who did he influence that had made a significant impact on Caribbean life? Okay. And we talked about he was what? A German philosopher who made significant contributions to various fields of philosophy, ethics, metaphysics, epistemology. And I said, remember I said to you, we are part of that, that civilization that Kant comes from. He has helped to influence society and our understanding of things, or post-colonialism, or rational. Now, his influences were rationalism. During the period of Renaissance and Reformation and the Enlightenment, and rationalism, empiricism, using empirical data, or because and building on Aristotle. Enlightenment philosophy, talk about Enlightenment philosophy. But we talk about in the word enlighten is important, and it is quite accurate and appropriate to use the word enlighten, because if we talk about Enlightenment philosophy, it's an understanding that they were the Dark Ages. They were the dark. Even if you study history and church history, if you study Caribbean history, you may not see the Dark Ages, but you will see the Dark Ages depending on where you begin. Okay, but the Dark Ages was a period where people were kept in the dark through strategy. Yes, through strategy. And then you talk about the Enlightenment philosophy, the translation of we talk about vernacular, in a vernacular translation of the scriptures into a vernacular that was of the common man. But before it was not of the common man. I mean, so when you but anyway, let's continue. One of the most important points that I said of Kant last week was that he said that what? History is a result of what? The varieties of what? Human nature and circumstance. What does that mean? What does he mean by that? And how does that speak to Caribbean experience? Or what does that tell us about our approach to Caribbean thought and to Caribbean? Notice I use the word approach. You have to use the word approach because Kant will help to inform our historicity or historical approaches and philosophical approaches to the subject of the thing. Okay. So he talked about the universal, the idea for a universal history with a, oh my God, here we go again, cosmopolitan purpose. We said that last week, and we're moving into having a discussion about this cosmopolitan. Now, who might be cosmopolitan? And I will stop here and take a break. Are we to define by analogy contemporary Hindi, Urdu, or Cantonese from China? Cultural worlds, the cultural worlds, Hindi in Hindu, okay, or Cantonese or Urdu of Pakistan and so on. I mean, who might be cosmopolitan? In fact, according to I think what's her name again? And I didn't even write it down properly. It's Werbner. It's Nina Werbner and Keel Yu says in an article, Understanding Vernacular Cosmopolitanism, talking about, so they did a review of Homi Bhabha's book and the whole issue of vernacular cosmopolitanism. How are we to understand the paradoxical conjoining of the local, of the local parochial, talk about the parochial view. Okay, the local, what's the parochial view? Okay, we thought, oh, that's a parochial understanding of history, a traditional, okay, all right, traditional view. And usually that is centered around colonial view, yes, Eurocentric, but anyways, how are we to understand the paradox? Paradox is an ambivalence. The paradoxical conjoining, two paradoxes conjoining, which is, we talk about vernacular cosmopolitanism. Parochial, so let me read it. How are we to understand the paradoxical conjoining of the local, parochial and popular, the local, parochial and popular, with a cosmopolitan worldview, the worldview of the figures, the characters, the diaspora. The diaspora will be part of that cosmopolitan experience, or we talk about globalization and this. How are we to, what is the Caribbean in this globalized world? When we start to delve into Frantz Fanon and moving beyond and delving in the book that I wrote, NeoLiberalism and Globalization, we start to see this a little bit more. Again, let me say this. How are we to understand the paradoxical conjoining of the local, parochial, and popular, the local, with cosmopolitan view? How does that work in Jamaica? How does that work in the Caribbean? Do boundary crossing working class, again, and we talk about Homi Bhabha was what? A boundary crossing working class. In a lecture, in a previous Caribbean Thought lecture, I talk about that. And when you watch Who Shot the Sheriff and the issue about Bob Marley, I said, who gets to leave? Okay, and we're gonna watch the film Life and Death later on. Actually, we're gonna watch it this next week, Wednesday, because on Monday we have a special guest coming in to talk. The executive director and legal attorney and scholar, former member of the United Nations International group, working with him, the president of Haiti, and he is going to be presenting next week, Monday, at our class. But how are we to understand the paradoxical conjoining of the local, parochial, and popular with a cosmopolitan worldview? Do boundary crossing working class, mass migrants, and refugees evolve the open toleration, cultural competence, and utopian worldview claimed by globe-trotting elite travelers? Do boundary crossing working class, mass migrants, and refugees evolve the tolerate acceptance, cultural competition, and utopian perfect worldview of a perfect world claimed by globe-trotting elite travelers? Do boundary crossing working class, mass migrants, and refugees evolve the open toleration? Conversely, can there be an enlightened cosmopolitanism that is not rooted in the final analysis in patriotic and culturally committed loyalties to a particular place? What I'm asking you and the whole issue of, this is an important question for Caribbean and Caribbean identity and experience, because yes, and I talk about a general will and the problem of culture, the problem of nationalism, the problem of grouping. It is, in one sense, we want to self-determine. In one sense, we want our own nation. In one sense, that was the Bandung spirit. But in another sense, how are we to accept the cosmopolitan? How are we to accept the mass migrant traveler outside of his culture? How is he to be seen? Is he seen in one sense here, and how is he seen in his location of culture? Can there be an enlightened, talk about enlightenment. You see how this particular tracing Caribbean history and what we're talking about here, we talk about Kant and talk about the Enlightenment philosophy and the cosmopolitan purpose, the idea of a universal history with a purpose that is universal to the individual without negating the individual. As Kierkegaard says, what is the ultimate? What is the ultimate about it? We don't know. A man said, well, once you label me, you negate me. Once you label me, you negate me. This speaks to the issue of label, in a sense. In the final analysis, in patriotic and cultural committed loyalties, what are my loyalties as against your loyalties? Are my loyalties derived? And derived from what? Or are they external to any derivation from the internal? But it is the experiences of Caribbean reality in many instances over the last couple of years that has led to the mass migration, where you have Caribbean cosmopolitans traveling all over the world looking for opportunity. People travel for opportunity. Can there be an enlightened cosmopolitan? As you travel, can there be? No, you can't. Look at Spice and what she had to go through. She is praised in some part of the US, but looked down upon in Jamaica. You know why? And I had a big debate with my family in, when was it? Was it last year? We were all gathered in Jersey Shore and they were talking about Spice and her decision to perform at a particular event. An event that, and many Jamaicans say she sold us out. That's what we're talking about, okay? Or you find that, I remember when my twin brother, I was 19, my twin brother left Jamaica when, my twin brother Ricardo left Jamaica. I have an identical twin. He left Jamaica when he was like about 18, 19. And he came back one time after a year, and then he came back 6 years after that. But when he came back, you know, it's as if we were looking, he was just so weird. He was drinking all this bottled water. Everything is bottled water. I'm like, oh, he's so Americanized. But then you go back to you go back to Louise Bennett Coverley, Coverley's genius, a literary genius that she is, when she said, not even a little twang. What, any of you guys know that poem when she talk about not even a little twang? What was that poem about? You remember that poem, guys?
Yes, sir. The son went to, I think it was America, and he came back maybe about 2 months after, and his language was still the same or something. I don't remember how long he said the Louise Bennett poem.
Yes, very powerful. Visit it, guys, because that speaks to the issue of cosmopolitanism. I love Louise Bennett. She has a way of using our language and how we talk, okay, to provide a profound intellectual basis for particular truth. But we think that we can be intellectual without speaking patois. Okay, I don't know. All right, so what are your loyalties to a particular place? All right, that's it. So therefore the question is, are we to define, so who might be the cosmopolitan? And how are we to place minority elites in new post-colonial nations, minority elites in new post-colonial nations who struggle to defend their local cultures and seek justice through multicultural citizenship. That's what I'm about today. That's what I do, multicultural citizenship, while being at the same time liberal, free, tolerant, open, and highly educated world travelers. Of course, I wrote a book, I went to pen. This is, and you know, when you, this is quite interesting. How are we to place minority elites in new post-colonial nations who struggle to defend their local cultures We defend our local cultures and then seek justice through multicultural citizenship, multicultural diversity, a diverse citizen. You're not citizen of just Jamaica. I'm a citizen of the world. Yes? While being at the same time liberal, tolerant, and highly educated world travelers. How can you bridge that gap? It's quite powerful, quite interesting. We will take a break here. We'll be back, and when we come back, we'll wrap up the class. We'll be back in we'll take a 10 minutes break. We'll be right back after these messages. We'll be right back after this. independent in the Caribbean, we are asking the question, which two Caribbean countries took their independence instead of receiving it as a gift through ceremonies? By the way, do you notice something about the question? You notice the question? The question is provocative, okay? The question is a provocative question. It's a troublesome question, so to speak. Which two Caribbean countries took their independence instead of receiving it as a gift through ceremonies? Some people will have an issue with this, will take issue with this, okay? And some political figures as well. They would think that, okay, no. That's not true. No Caribbean islands got their independence through ceremonies. So that is a question that you guys could interact with. But one person said Belize and Haiti. I don't see where Belize fought for an independence in terms of have a revolution leading to an independence. There is nowhere in the history that you have read. But I mean, we have about how many persons in the class? About 12 or 13? Only 5.
13 persons, sir.
Only 5 persons answered the question. Why? Why only 5 of 12 people participated in this? What's going on?
I'm not sure if you're seeing a response on me, but when I selected my answer and pressed submit, it just went off the screen and it seemed as if it wasn't submitted.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm using my phone as well, so maybe that's the same issue.
Yeah, the same issue.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, so yes, the answer is Cuba and Haiti. But then I asked you this question, not just to answer it, to get it right or wrong. I asked this question for us to start generating some ideas and thoughts around it. What am I getting at when we talk about receiving gift receiving as against take? Because, of course, from the subaltern view, from the history from below, people who are part of the struggle, who have come out of that struggle, but we're still writing about the struggle because we're still seeing struggle in de facto and de facto factors. What is de facto factors and de jure factors? De facto factors are, de jure factors is systematic, de facto factors is not a part of the system. In other words, we talk about discriminatory tactics. Okay, discriminatory tactics. In other words, so the discrimination against slavery at one time was part of the system. And the system was created in such a way to discriminate against it. But now we have moved on, and they have made illegal certain discriminatory practices and behaviors. However, through de facto factors, in other words, preferences and subtle ways we continue to discrimination and injustices in the world. Talking about, say, for example, this de facto president in Haiti. Anyways, but even so, I say to you guys, the beautiful thing about Haiti's and Cuba's independence and freedom was when they got it at first, was the fact that they didn't receive it from another man through ceremonies, as if that man is their God and have gifts of freedom to grant anyone, as if men aren't born free. I say that in my new book, NeoLiberal Globalization Reconsidered, Neo-Capitalism and the Death of Nations. Neoliberal Globalization Reconsidered, Neo-Capitalism and the Death of Nations. Notice the play upon words, the pun, because Adam Smith wrote the book, The Wealth of Nation, Capitalism and the Wealth of Nation, as if capitalism provides wealth. So I have rewritten that the conversation. And now I'm saying it's neo-capitalism and the death of nations. Okay, but that's the poetic ways of writing, because I love poetry. I love to include poetry in my writing. It makes it colorful. But look at this. It says, right, so I make the point that, and this is a powerful point, I'm going to end the poll now. Somebody said Belize. No, it's not Belize, okay? And let's go. I have another poll. When you look at the white, when you look at the black man, yes, when you look at the black man, the colonized, the former colonized man, and the way in which he secured his freedom. By the way, there's something about violence I have to talk about. I have to present a paper about violence with you guys, because somebody asked me in the previous Caribbean thought class whether or not this behavior, there was something in the news about Usain Bolt and all of this theft and this white collar crime in Jamaica, and whether or not it stems from colonization. And of course, so I did a whole paper about colonization and violence, and whether or not they are connected, I will present it in this class if I have time. Hopefully I do. There's so much material that we want to get through. But I have said that when you look at, I made the point, and I guess I won't make it now, but I made the point, a powerful point about violence. And even when you look at Frantz Fanon and Homi Bhabha, Louise Bennett, the way in which they write, the way in which they practice their craft, it was through violence, okay? It made people feel uncomfortable. V.S. Naipaul talking about some duppies and some characters from Baccabush. That's not usual, okay? So, I mean, so we talk about the violence, we talk about violence, we're not talking about, I mean, social movements, and if you look at the colonizers and the post-colonial subjects and the colonial subjects, if they had to fight, many of them had to fight, but some of their fight devolved into privilege and to beautiful ceremonies. But I say to you, when you look at who can behave violently as against who can't, or the repercussions of those who behave violently towards a particular stimuli as against those who have not, as against those who have received, as against those who have with a particular, with the dependent on the repercussions of that. Say, for example, talk about the Black Lives Matter movement in America. Black Lives Matter movement in America. And they were fighting because of police brutality. But why police brutality? Because, first of all, the discrimination in terms of policing. The police act brutally. It's quick to meet with violence, to mete out violence and brutality to our Black brothers and sisters, but to another set of people, it's not the same. And even certain behaviors and actions are seen as violent and aggressive. Yes, certain Black behaviors, certain Black attitude, certain Black style. By the way, we're not talking about that. We're talking about ceremonies. Say, for example, Jamaica's independence was a beautiful ceremony. We received our freedom and we received our gifts of independence as if it's not our country. We live there and we have the right to self-determination. Our independence and our freedoms as human beings should not come from anywhere, should not come from another man. Because all men are inherently free. So I question our independence. Yes, I do. I question the independence and the type of independence and the spirit of the independence and how we got the independence as against how Cuba and Haiti got independence. The beautiful ceremonies, but please remember that also some nationalists, they wanted an independence where they can become part of the elites now. Now we don't have to rely on the European elites. Now we have our own elites. but we continue with the system of elitism. There's one other thing I want you guys to do for me before we, there's one other poll that we have. So this poll has ended, so I'm going to stop sharing that. Now I'm going to launch another one. Actually, did you guys do a poll that asked, okay, did you guys answer this question before in this class? Have we misunderstood our history as Jamaicans or Caribbean peoples of African descent? Did you guys answer that question before?
Yes.
sir.
Did you guys did that in a poll?
Yes, sir, we did.
Oh, and then the second one was, has our heritage been misclassified? Did you guys do that as well?
Yes, sir.
And then the third one is, what is the Caribbean? Oh no, you guys didn't do that one yet. Oh, single choice. What is the Caribbean? Oh, I started out of many. Okay, yeah, you guys did that. Okay, so you did. Okay, great.
So
Now,
how many polls have gone already, sir?
Sorry?
How many polls have gone already?
They did 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th one.
I don't remember.
And I'm about to launch it. I'm about to launch it. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. It says, is it true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica or Haiti? Yes or no? Break out in your groups. Actually, break out in your groups.
This is a group submission, sir.
Yeah, I want this to be a group submission. Is it true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica or Haiti? Is it true? And break out in your group and have a discussion about this. Now, the thing is, so this particular session is important. I'm going to give you up
So
until
which group am I? Which group
wait,
am I in,
listen, up until 9 o'clock. So I think there's a way that I can
breakout rooms, please. Sorry, create some breakout rooms.
All right, I'm going to do that. All right, let me go back to the Cosmopolitan. See if I can edit it. They won't how do I do the breakout rooms again? I haven't done breakout rooms in such a long time. Give me a second, guys. I'm doing a breakout room for you guys. All right. How do I do this?
Ken.
Susie, mute.
Oh, dear, sorry.
Now I'm going to create 3 groups. You guys get the chance to choose it. It says let participants choose room. All right, create. And then open all rooms options. Let me see their option. Allow participants to choose room, allow participants to return to the main session. Automatically move all assigned participants into breakout rooms. Automatically move all selected participant breakout rooms to main meeting. Breakout rooms close after 10 minutes. Okay, what time is it now? It's 8:44. All right. Breakout rooms close after, I'm going to say 15 minutes. Notify me when time is up, blah, 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 blah. Countdown 120 seconds. Let's up that. Oh, that's the highest. Okay. All right. So now I can. All right. So now I can open all rooms. Oops. All right. There are 3 rooms. Okay. I'm going to ask each of you to join a room. Okay. Can you guys do that?
Yes, sir.
So join a room, and can you guys still see the poll question? I mean, sorry, the question that I'm asking you guys about cosmopolitanism. Can I? Oh no, it's still launched. All right, there we go. So there are 3 breakout rooms. Oh wow, you guys. Okay, unassigned. Room 1 is full. Room 1. Okay, wait. Room 1. I see Jadine, Michaelia, Romaine, Sasha K. All right, so you have so this exercise will take 15 minutes. Break out in your rooms and then talk about how you answer the question as it relates to, is it true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica or Haiti? Okay. When you come back, I would love to hear what you guys, the responses and what you guys have said. And then we will take a break around 9:15 and come back and we will talk, and I'll wrap up the class looking at continuing to look at the continuing with the looking at the tracing Caribbean currents and works, starting from Arawak to Africa, and we will do that, and then when we are finished, that's the class. Okay. So we are back and we are recording again. So the question is it true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica or Haiti? And I'm asking you guys to answer the question. And so far, it's 50-50. 50-50. 50% of the class said yes. It is true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica or Haiti. And then the other 50% says, no, Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica. So there are some of you who said yes, and some of you said no. I want to know why some of you say yes, why some of you say no. Let's start with group one. Group one. Oh, so group two is Dane, Susie, Jacinth, and Keon. All right, fine. I'm not hearing any. Who is in group one? Who are the students? Who are the students in group one? Who are the students in group one? Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. I am hearing you.
All right, who are the students in group?
Can hear
Who
you,
are the
sir. We can
students
hear
in
you.
group one? Who are the students in group one? So group two has Dane, Susie, Jacinth, and Keon. Fine. We don't have any people in group one? Okay, fine, group two.
Sir, what you're saying, group two is to do a presentation. What are you saying?
I mean, not a presentation. We're having a class, we're having a discussion, and I asked you a question to discuss it amongst yourself in your group.
Okay, all right.
Develop, okay, so the question, what did your group decide? Did everybody in your group say yes? Or did some people say yes and some people say no? And what was the consensus?
Okay, group two, we came to the decision that that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica or Haiti.
Okay.
And that is because we found out that both Jamaica and Haiti had gotten their emancipation before the US. And Juneteenth was actually a celebration, or it is a celebration of emancipation of slavery in the US. So yes, that's sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? So you're saying that no, Juneteenth has nothing to do with Jamaica or Haiti because Juneteenth represents the emancipation or the emancipation of all slaves in the US. And that was after Jamaica and Haiti's independence. So Juneteenth has nothing to do with
emancipation.
Sorry?
Not independence, emancipation.
Sorry, okay, emancipation. All right. Interesting. And okay, anybody else from another group? Group three.
Yes, sir. For me, I said no.
Okay.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
I believe 80, especially 80, contributed to the influence of the American slave wanting emancipation for themselves. So I chose no.
Okay, that's good. Good.
Chose yes.
Group one, you're group one.
Group 3, sir.
Oh, group. Where's
So we
group
have
one?
divide in group 3.
Wait, who is in group 3? Tell me.
Maxine, Keisha, and Sasha K.
Okay. And who is in group? So that's group 1. Okay, great. And you can text me.
Sir.
That's group 3. So who is group 1 then?
Sir, I think it's the duppy that you were referring to earlier in group 1.
Only one person in group 1? But when I look at earlier, there were like 6 people in group 1.
No, sir, the duppy that you mentioned earlier, those are the members. Louis Bennett, yeah, but nobody's responding.
Why nobody in group 1 wants to respond? What's going on? So we know Susie is in a group. Sashana is in a group. Yes? Sashana?
Oh, sir, somebody said in the chat that they didn't have any discussions.
Okay, but fine. I still want to hear your opinion on the matter. Well, how did you respond? How did you respond?
So back to group 3.
Okay.
Keisha and I had the same response. Maxine had a different response. So she was trying to share her point earlier.
Okay, Maxine, let's hear what's your opinion? What
All
is
right.
it?
So I chose yes for my answer because America, their declaration was signed in 1963, and it didn't even come into full force until maybe 2-3 years after, because they had the planter class they hid the information from George that George Washington signed.
Yeah.
It wasn't until this general started going around in places like Texas and Virginia and talking to the slaves. They went to the black churches, the AME churches, and telling them that they were free. And then that was the time that they made them free. Jamaica got their emancipation in 1834 to 1838. Haiti fought for their thing in 1793. And even though, all of this took time, but this was before America. What I think George Washington, after a while, he said that he wanted to send some Americans, some free black people, not the Americans, some free black people to Haiti. There's a little island near to Haiti there, and he wanted to send them there so that they can get colonized and so on, because they said that even though he wanted to set the slaves free, he didn't really was chummy with the black people. So he tried to send a group down to Haiti so that they can get colonized, and some of them died from chicken pox, and they didn't send the ship with the food for them, and after suffering. So he about a year later, he sent a ship down and carried them back to those that survived. He took them back to America. So yes, nowadays Jamaica celebrate everything. So we hear about Juneteenth and we are celebrating it in some places, but it doesn't really affect us. It doesn't really affect us that much because we don't even understand why, the history behind Juneteenth. So that's why I chose yes for my answer.
That was quite profound. I love how you answered that question. I loved how you answered that question. and how you went into the history. And you were onto something, but you stopped, and that's fine. If you were to develop that some more, push it to its logical end, it
Okay.
would come to a conclusion. It would lead you to an understanding or an awareness. Because that you're asking some very important questions. I mean, so the first thing you said, of course, you talked about Jamaica getting independence in 1833, and slaves being emancipated at that time. But please remember, when was the proclamation? When was the Juneteenth represents the proclamation that all slaves were free in the US. But when the emancipation came first, only some knew that they were free. The others didn't know, because as we said, about this, the war between the North and the South, okay, where the South wanted to keep their slaves, the North did not. Now the question is, why is it that the North wanted to free slaves, but the South didn't? But whatever the case, you might say, oh, that's good. Wow, the North, they wanted to free the slaves. No, well, yes, but what was happening in the world economically? Having slaves was not for the North. The North was becoming much more sophisticated in their technology, in their production. And so there, at some points, having slaves did not serve the interest of the profiteers. It did not. And by that, I mean, capitalism is about profit. The profiteers is about profit. You want to make a profit. Okay. But then, and we talk about Adam Smith, talk about capitalism and the wealth of nations, talk about the development of production, the sophistication of technology, and the way in which we change labor. Now, people thought we came up with specialization and division of labor, and wage labor versus chattel labor versus slave labor. Whoa, come on now. Slave labor versus chattel labor versus what? Wage labor. And so while the North was equipped and ready and put everything in place, for the South was not ready. They were still, the kind of society was much more agricultural that depend heavily on slave labor still, in order to guarantee the kind of mass production and to guarantee the kind of profit they're hoping for. While in the North, they were moving beyond slave labor to a kind of labor that was still oppressive. But this time, slave owners don't have to look after the slaves' needs. It is becoming expensive to have slaves at this time. It is becoming expensive. So leading up to Juneteenth, and by the way, thank you for giving us those amazing dates. Okay, thank you, that was really good. And the only thing you need now is say, well, you say, according to so and so and so forth, or this person said whatever, but that you do that in your papers, that's fine. But that was powerful, that was great. But the point I'm here making is that when you look, we're having a conversation about labor, but we won't be like this, how horses are controlled, how animals are controlled. We will take the filters from our eyes and ask deep questions. So when you start to think about, well, it was prudent economically to not have slaves at the time, and the North was ready to move on to another kind of slavery. And sorry, another kind of labor. Another kind of labor. Yes? While in the South, they weren't ready. But whatever the case might be, I'm going to answer this question in a very profound way. I'm going to answer the question in a very, very profound way, and I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to tell you my position. You guys aren't right or wrong, but Jamaica got independent in 1833, and many of the Commonwealth, but it wasn't until 1865, that we heard that the slaves became aware that they were free. So they were free, but they were working as if they were not free. The same thing, the slaves in the South, or the other slaves, because other slaves were free, but it's not free until everybody's free. So that is why they wait until Juneteenth. They could have celebrated emancipation before that, but because all of their brothers and sisters weren't free, they said, no, we're not celebrating slavery before the time when all Americans got slaves, only the North. No, we want to celebrate it when everybody were proclaimed free. When everyone was proclaimed free. And we talk about the Americas and the Americas and how active and dynamic the Americas was in terms of slaves traveling from Jamaica to, some people were, oh, Jamaica is free. So some runaway slaves found their way in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. And then some slaves that left Jamaica and came to the Caribbean, they were either enslaved or were living in the mountains with the American Indians. When you study the archives. But the experience is similar. I said to you, what did C.L.R. James said, if you guys read C.L.R. James? C.L.R. James said of Fidel Castro and West Indian. Fidel Castro is not black. The Cubans aren't black. But the revolution is West Indian. We are fighting the same fight against the same thing for the same thing. That is, okay? So, so we can relate to that because in Jamaica, we got independence, but we weren't proclaimed free until 1865. Till 1865. Same thing in Juneteenth. Juneteenth speaks to the emancipation of slaves, people like us, black people, colonized, black people, urban people, people who weren't Anglo-Saxon or people who weren't considered white. If you weren't white, then you were subject to another race. You were treated as property. You were treated as animal with no rights, no universal suffrage. But they say, and throughout the American, and just so you know, when you think about the triangular trade and the evolution of the triangular trade. From Europe, the Europeans went from Europe, the discoverers or the Christianizers or the missionaries. But they weren't really missionaries. They said they were going to Christianize. Christopher Columbus was a missionary. It was a Christian missionary promoting the gospel of the religion of Europe. He was going to Christianize the world. He was going to bring religion to a world where according to the European, if you are not worshiping our God, then you don't have a religion. So when they are going, so as missionaries, with the ulterior motive of making money by finding gold, but they said they were going to spread the gospel. But also, why they said that they were going to spread the gospel? Because that was part of the way of them getting the money. Okay, the money from the crown and the money from the church. Christopher Columbus got money from the crown and he got money from the church. Okay, but when you're trying to get money to do an expedition, you have to disclose why. And he would not have probably got the kind of support he got if he did not say from the church. He got money from the church, and guess what? A member of the church was with the discoverers, especially when you get money from the church. So he got money from the church and from the crown. Okay, he was going to Christianize the world, the Americas. And he was also going and Christianize that in terms of representing the church. And he was also going to find gold because he represents also the merchants, the nobles, the dominant class of the day, the monarchs. So they went from and treated the other people with ethnocentrism as if, oh, God could not have interacted with those people. They're primitive, they're backward, they don't have language, they're not sophisticated, they're not dignified. That's the assumption, the assumptions. When people want to control, they redefine the other. And that's what happened in terms of the European exploration. They redefine the other as hate with all kind of names, heathen. The heathens. Heathens are those people who are not. They don't talk to the Europeans, weren't, even if you did not come under, even if you weren't baptized a Christian, you're not really treated as a heathen. Heathen was a word that reserved for the primitive, the slave, the African, the American Indian. But they went from Europe with guns. By the time we get to the slave trade in 1655, they went beyond 1655 in the 1660s, the 70s, and of course the Dutch and Portuguese, they were doing some kind of small exploration in terms of slavery. But when the triangular trade started, they went from Europe to Africa, brought guns. They brought guns. And they traded with, and by the way, I say to you, when you think about Africans, don't think about Africans in terms of tribes. They were a country. Don't think of them in terms of tribes, tribal. They were a country with laws and rules. Yes? With laws and rules and dignity and the system. But when you think about Africa, the picture that comes up in your mind is primitive savages, because that is what you see in the religious books when we talk about them, and in the sociological books that we read, and the psychology books and so on, and the medical books. Even when they talk about diseases and stuff, even to today, Black people are more predisposed, and they make it so in terms of the experience of Blackness in the Caribbean and the world. Because we talk about the Black position. In the new book I'm writing, I talk about, there's a chapter in that new book I'm writing that talks about the Black position. What is the Black position? What am I talking about? I'm not going to give it away. Okay. The Black position. Wherever you are in the world, what's the Black position? How can we not be connected with Haitians and Jamaicans, the Americans? And we talk about the cosmopolitanism and global travels and the connections between. They went from Cuba, from Europe to Africa, bring guns, and outsmarted and tricked the Africans. Because the Africans, there was a fierce competition in Africa. The African countries were competing for dominance too among themselves. They were competing for dominance. So the Europeans said, hey, made some deals. We will give you guns, okay, to fight your wars for dominance, and your slaves, your best and strongest and most beautiful, and you bring them to us. We'll take them from you and we'll bring the guns. But that deal that they made with that one African country, they made it with all other African countries. So then, okay, with all the different peoples. It's great. And that also helped to destabilize Africa. Okay, it had the destabilization of Africa as well, because that was how they were able to dominate Africa. And in the 1600s, and Britain the Brits had colonized Egypt as well, because if you read Cromer in Balfour, the parliamentarian, giving an address to Parliament about Egypt in the 1600s, speaking so in such an ethnocentric way, using his own value judgment to make a determination about the Egyptians. So anyway, they went to Africa and they traded. Okay, and they took slaves on the ship, and they went from Africa to the Americas. And within them, the Americas, Jamaica, and all along the coast of the Americas and the Caribbean, some of the slaves they were placing slaves up and down the Americas. Yeah, some went. So when we talk about, okay, so there is so this region is part, and I said to you, it's part of that new world. It's part of that experience, the dynamic that has led to the new world. The Caribbean is part of that. The US is part of that. And by that, the world had existed, but we're talking about the Western civilization. We talk about Westerner, the Westerner. The Jamaican wasn't seen as the Westerner. The American was, the Westerner was the European, they were the Westerner. But Western culture has penetrated and taken a hold of all of the Americas. And the only reason why the black slaves, why all the black slaves weren't freed in America at the same time, or at the time when of the Caribbean, Haitians or Jamaicans, because of the slave master and the slave owner and the colonial power. Who is the slave master in America, in the US? But of course, they got independence from the Brits. They got independence from Britain. So the control changed hands. Okay, and one of the reasons why the US got independence from Britain was because they wanted to be able to control their own wealth. It's for monetary reasons. But if you read other histories of the US and what happened, of course you will be taught something else. You will learn that they wanted their own. Well, of course, you will talk. They wanted to. It was some. They were having some. There was issue with the crown in terms of paying taxes. The minute they were opposed to sending money all the way back to Britain. We're talking about the locals, the Americans who are from Britain. These very same people, the plantocracy, they are all from Europe, from England, or from Britain. Okay. And they were part of that whole slave system. But of course, we talk about the slave owner. The slave owner is different, but the slave is not. The slave is still the slave. Part of that experience, mixed up with the native and with those from Africa. So in a sense, there is still this brotherhood, the experience of slavery, the experience of the triangular trade, the experience of the Americas. That's all. So I responded to, I'm going to share my screen. What time is it? 9:32. Good. I'm going to share my screen because I want to raise an issue with you guys. Go back up to here as I wrap up. Share screen. There we go. Now, question, is it true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Haiti or Jamaica? I tweeted this and I also wrote it in an article. The truth depends. The truth depends. The truth depends. And we talk about there are different kinds of truth. In other words, it's all a matter of perspective. That's the answer to me. Is it true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Haiti or Jamaica? It's a matter of perspective. It depends on the slant you take. The truth, and I say to you, the truth of this, is it true? And I say to you, the truth depends on one's perspective. Now listen to this provocative part of this statement. The truth depends on one's perspective. So I ask you, you guys answered the question, what is your perspective? What was your approach? So you answered the question, but why did you answer it the way you did? What was going on in your mind? What worldviews, shape, or ideas about history and all things helped to shape? So, and I like how Maxine brought in some readings and about history and so on. That was beautiful. And I say to you, Bo, the truth depends on your perspective, especially if it is myopic. Now, I'm a debater as well, okay? So I am, and I studied apologetics and I teach apologetics, which is, apologetics is the use of logic to defend the faith. The truth depends on one's perspectives, especially if it is myopic and limited limited in that it does not go beyond time and space. But, I'm going to say that again. Question, is it true that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Haiti or Jamaica? The truth depends on one's perspectives, especially if it is myopic. Myopic dealing with myopia. Do you have myopia? I mean, myopia has to do with your eyesight, how far you can see or how close. Okay. Myopic, if it's myopic, is the same thing as saying limited, in that it does not go beyond time and space. It does not go beyond, again, the law of thermodynamics. It does not go beyond what, again? Time, history, and space. Geography. Oh! I said, the truth of that answer and how you answer it depends on what? Your perspective, especially if it is myopic and limited in that it does not go beyond what? Time, history, a period in history. Yes, we're talking about Juneteenth, as against Maxine referred to it earlier. One was before, we were before, in terms of America's emancipation. But we talk about it doesn't go beyond time. So if it doesn't, okay, and space, geography. If we are only limited within our own milieu, then we won't see it. But Harris, this gentleman named HKTV Harris on Twitter, he responded to me because on Juneteenth, I tweeted on June, and I'm going to talk about it. And I refer to it here. I said, but Harris would want us to believe that it doesn't, that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Haiti. I said, Harris would want us to believe that it doesn't, based on his reply to the post I shared on Juneteenth, calling for us to be good Samaritans. Even outside of any historical issue, if we think about it from a really theological basis or a matter of faith, then yes, even outside of any kind of history. So my response is that he would want us to believe that it doesn't, based on his reply to the post I shared on Juneteenth, calling for us to be good Samaritans. In the fight for justice, because we're talking about what defined West Indian, this West Indianness, what it is that connected West Indian people of yesterday and today. It was the drive. Let's read it again. Homi Bhabha talks about that when she talked about moving, when she talked about looking back, moving forward. Notes on vernacular cosmopolitanism. When he said, in a small way, my early life was caught on the crossroads that marked the end of empire. And by empire, we're talking about the post-colonial drive towards the new horizons of a third world of free nations. Notice she used the word free nations and not nation. Because the fight for independence wasn't just a Jamaican one or a Barbadian one. Okay? It was one that involved the Bandung spirit. Free nations, the Bandung spirit, embroiled though. So this is a little departure. She said, free nation, yeah, that's the drive. However, embroiled at times though, there's some times when this post-colonial drive for this new horizons was affected by this embroilment, this desire for the wayward means to go outside, the wayward modernist art and literature of Europe that was so much a part of the world of the westernized Indian bourgeoisie. I wonder if you guys understand what Homi Bhabha is getting at here. I wonder if you guys, in fact, that's going to be the homework. What is I wonder if you guys understand. This is what you call vernacular cosmopolitanism. This is what you call the oxymoron of that cosmopolitan spirit and that drive. That's what you call that's what's so oxymoronic about this. In one sense, or ironic, an irony. Maybe I should talk about irony. When you do the foundations of knowledge and the foundations of knowledge, liberal studies, you're going to talk about, and you study Greek literature. One of the things that you will meet in Greek literature is the use of irony and dialectic. But okay. But this is paradoxical. Listen to it. The post-colonial drive, the formerly independent, the formerly colonized, the formerly slave, the West Indian man, the natives, and so the former colonized, they had this post-colonial drive towards the new horizons of a free nation, of a global south, of free nations. The banged down spirit, that all of us, because we were all enslaved, and so we all are driving towards freedom. Embroiled. So okay, that's the first part. But when she goes on, listen to how however, she puts up a different picture here. She critiques herself. Yes, in one sense, there was this drive. But in another sense, it was embroiled at times with what? A desire for the wayward, modernist art and literature of Europe. That was so much a part of the world of the westernized Indian bourgeoisie, and by extension, the westernized West Indian, the westernized West Indian bourgeois. What is that? This is very important. And so I continued. I continued. So I continued with the post. I paused a little bit, but listen to how I continued with this statement. I said to him, but Harris would want us to believe that it doesn't, based on his reply to the post I shared on Juneteenth, calling for us to be what? Good Samaritans in the fight for justice. Justice is a very important word in post-colonialism. Justice is a very important word in Black studies. Justice is a very important word in Caribbean thought, in Pan-Africanism. I had posted yesterday via my Twitter, as we reflect, and this is what I said, as we reflect and celebrate the Emancipation Proclamation of all slaves, leading to what? Leading to one, universal suffrages. Because when the slaves were freed, they couldn't vote. Could they vote? They couldn't vote. They never had universal suffrage. When Jamaican slaves were freed, could they vote? No, they couldn't vote. Emancipation did not mean universal suffrage. Emancipation, you were free as a slave, but you weren't free to be part of society of normal men. You were still part of what you were free, but now you move from property to class. Yes, from property to class. So you move from slave to the bottom of the bucket. You still were nobody. We still weren't anybody's. So when I asked you the question, what does it have to do with that? It depends on how we are looking and contextualizing. Jamaicans never had, and even today, Haiti. Haiti was the first Black colony that got their independence. But of course, I say to you, they didn't get their independence through ceremony. They fought for their independence, and the slaves weren't freed. Okay, the slaves weren't free; they freed themselves. And it started with a Jamaican who came from Zami-Cambi named Dottie Bookman, who came to Jamaica with his African religion, with his African faith, and went from there, from Jamaica. He left Jamaica and ran away to Haiti. Some of those Haiti ran away from, okay, left well, some of those with American penetration, there was travel between the Caribbean or the Americas. And even when the American Indians were here, this particular land, the Americas, there's those richness in this land. You go down to the south of the Americas, it's tropical beauty. You go to the north, it's Alaskan beauty. But I say to you, they were freed slaves, but they weren't free to vote. They weren't seen as, they were seen as half a people. The same thing happened in the Americas when we got Juneteenth. We celebrate Juneteenth as the emancipation, but nothing else. What about universal suffrage? What about civil rights? Civil rights was not until the 1960s in this country. And in Jamaica, it wasn't until about what, 1944 that we got universal suffrage in Jamaica and parted and some places in the Caribbean. So although we were freed, we weren't free. We were still considered second or half of human beings. So we have to put it into perspective. And I already say to you, my freedom doesn't come from any man. My freedom comes from the fact that I am a man. I'm a human being, just like any other person. No other person have any right to give me any freedom. My freedom is derived. Even that is still in limbo. The fact that even that makes me angry. Even that makes me upset. The thought of being freed by somebody else who at once thought they were more privileged. And privilege continues to this day. And even after we have gotten freedom from the gods, even though we got freedom from the gods, because if we get it from somebody like us, then they are God's freedom, the freedom to be human, the freedom to exercise our human right that come from something external to us, that must be God. But the thing that is external to us that guaranteed our freedom was our former enslavers. Anyways, as we reflect and celebrate the emancipation of slavery, leading to universal suffrages and human rights in the US on this Juneteenth, this is the punch. Let's not forget, brothers and sisters, we talk about the brothers and sisters. CLR James talk about Fidel Castro. They are West Indians in the fight. They are from Latin Africa. Let's not forget them in Haiti. Let's not forget our brothers and sisters in Haiti, because we thought they were the first country to be able to exercise their freedom to vote, and to be a country with laws, and they run their own. We thought they were the first, but they're still dealing with justice and developing democracy in their country, even to today. Renaldo, McKenzie, who may help? I'm in a class. Okay, give me 2 minutes. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So I said to you, let's. Thank you.
I'll turn you.
All right, I'm okay. Sorry about that. Let's not forget our brothers and sisters. Okay, guys, give me a minute. I'm sorry. 1 second. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that, guys. I don't remember the point I was making, but anyways, I said that let's not forget brothers and sisters in Haiti still fighting.
About not about monster.
Okay, but I think I've moved beyond that. But let's not forget our brothers and sisters in Haiti still fighting for these same rights. That's the most important part. Yeah, Dottie Bookman. We talk about Dottie Bookman coming from Haiti, from Africa. Semi-Gambi, right? Chantel, Semi-Gambi. Yes?
Yes, sir, correct.
And from there to Gambia, from there to Jamaica. And when we start to look at by the way, we're going to do Caribbean theology. And when I do that topic on Caribbean theology, don't just expect me to talk about Christian theology and systematic theology. I want to talk about the development of Caribbean theology and how it informs us. But more so, why do we have such a, as Homi Bhabha calls it, a position against our African tradition of faith? We'll talk about that. I want to talk about Obia. I want to talk about spiritism and voodoo and how and Rastafarianism and so on. We're going to talk about a little bit about that in this class, which is very important to the development of Caribbean thinking and Caribbean theology. But how our European ideas have left our local nativist ideas about God, how that is put on the fringes, the back burner. That is the same thing that she's talking about here. Yeah, free world, but at the same time, we had a desire for the wayward modernist art and literature that was European. Let's not forget our brothers and sisters in Haiti for these same rights. That's human. And then I continued by saying that sign the petition for Haiti, that Caribbean government support a Haitian-led solution against foreign interference. Harris critiqued in the thread that Juneteenth has nothing to do with Haiti, but it does. That's my position. I agree with, no, I'm not, you guys aren't right or wrong. Okay? The important thing is that we understand each other, and conversations is very important because it may help us to see something that we never saw before. Like Maxine, you helped me to see something that I've never seen before. That is good. Okay, that is good, that is good. But I will not proselytize my ideas on you. What I will do is share an expansive view of how we can approach certain dilemmas in society. So yes, it does. In the words of C.L.R. James, and I quote, Fidel and the Cubans are not Black. Fidel and the Cubans are not Black. But their revolution was West Indian. They may not be Black, but the revolution is West Indian. The revolution is human. We're fighting for the same cause. Indeed, if one is not free, indeed, if one is not free, this is important. If one is not free, then none is. If one is not free, then none is. We are connected as human beings in the fight for human rights and freedoms. Are we not? So that question is, but you see, so if I were to ask you to revisit this question, how different would you answer it based on some of the new arguments and ideas I put forward? Okay, that's one of the questions that I would ask. Okay, how would you answer it? Would your position be the same based on the foregoing? Would it be the same? Anybody? Would you update your answer?
For me, sir?
Yeah. Well, no, you already said that you would. You think it does. But there are other students in the class who believe that it doesn't. So the question is, do you agree with me? Do you okay, but I know some of you don't disagree with me, but what are you thinking around how do you respond to that? You don't have to respond now, but I'm going to wrap up class. I will end class in 5 minutes. Sorry, in 5 to 10 minutes or less. But I do not want to go. No, I'm not going beyond 10:05 today. Okay. In your groups, I want you to answer the question. I will send you the homework in a text or email in an interaction paper. And I'll tell you what I want in a few seconds. But I want to share my screen with you real quickly because I'm going to wrap up the class with this particular thing. Yeah, that's very much sure. This is from the NeoLiberal journals, sorry, the NeoLiberal Post at RenaldoCMcKenzie.com. Am I still recording? Chantel?
Yes, sir, you are recording.
Yes, sir. You are recording, sir.
So after the last class, sometimes when I share the videos of class with you guys, I try to make the video dynamic with music in the background because the videos are long with some background images and blah blah blah.
Excuse me, sir, on that note, can you just turn on the music in the background because I have a hearing problem?
Okay, so you don't like no music?
I like music, but it's too loud.
Okay, fine, I'll do that. I'll do that. But the music it's not throughout the entire recording, but I'll tone it down. Thank you for that editing tip. Thank you. I appreciate you for that. I will run with that. Now, revisiting Caribbean history, challenging narratives and cultivating a subaltern view. Last week, that's what we did. Last week, we revisited Caribbean history and we will be revisiting Caribbean history. And we will trace it. I haven't finished. I have actually an outline I want to share with you. I don't know if I'm going to get through the entire thing, but I'm going to give you the actual thing in your hand. Okay, I think I might have sent it to you guys. I don't know. But the last class, it was more looking at revisiting Caribbean history, challenging narratives, and cultivating a subaltern view. I'm ending with this. And in the introduction, I said, and I wanted to note, look at how I interact with the class last week and how I was able to write it. So if ever you are asked to write an interaction summary of the class, I begin by saying in an academic way, in a thought-provoking lecture at Jamaica Theological Seminary in Caribbean thought, the exploration of Caribbean thought or Caribbean history from a subaltern perspective took center stage. The aim was to trace and revisit the currents and works that have shaped the Caribbean region since the seminal publication of Arawaks to Africans by Robert Greenwood and S. Amber in 1979. It's been updated since then. This lecture last week not only presented an outline of influential Caribbean works and thinkers, but also delved into their influences, emphasizing the profound impact they have had on the development of Caribbean life, philosophy, thought, and the interpretation of its history. Of course, I embedded this video in so you guys can watch that. But anyways, beyond that, first thing, questioning narratives, Greenwood's accounts and European influence. The lecture began by questioning the accounts put forth by Robert Greenwood in Arawaks to Africans, Greenwood's narrative, which seemingly portrayed the Taino people as disconnected from Africans and their presence in the Caribbean. This raised concerns about the influence of European history and philosophy on his interpretation of history. It challenged the notion that the Taino people had been completely wiped out and dismissed by connections and dismissed any connection they might have had with Africans. And of course, yesterday or the day before yesterday, we invited the UIHS to do a presentation. And hopefully you guys are to do a presentation, which I made available. And if you guys have an opportunity to reflect on it or to interact with it, that would be great if you can interact with that. Secondly, a skeptical outlook and critical, it's 10 o'clock. A skeptical outlook and critical re-examination. It's a very short article. The lecture urged the students to critically examine Greenwood's account and approach them with a skeptical mindset. It emphasized the need to reassess our understanding of history, to reinvent ourselves in the 21st century by challenging prevailing narratives. It is in doing so that we can uncover hidden connections, untold stories, and alternative perspectives that offer a more comprehensive understanding of Caribbean history and its people. The influential Caribbean works and thinkers. The lecture also provided an illuminating list. Well, it's not exhaustive. We only gave you 4 or 5, but we have a list of about 50 people that summarize that we will in PowerPoint presentation that you will get a chance to peruse. Works and thinkers whose contributions have shaped the region and influenced its trajectory. By exploring the influential voices, the lecture aimed at what? To shed light on the rich intellectual heritage that has been instrumental in defining Caribbean life, philosophy, thought, and historical interpretation. The expanded information about the influence served as a testament to their enduring impact and relevance. Next, we looked at the impact or the importance of reconnecting with history. Revisiting Caribbean history from a subaltern perspective is vital for the Caribbean community's self-reinvention. Again, revisiting Caribbean history from a subaltern perspective is vital for the Caribbean community's self-reinvention and progress. By re-evaluating and critically analyzing the narratives, the stories, the histories, and so on that have shaped our understanding of the past, we can challenge dominant paradigms. Paradigms are patterns. We can challenge dominant paradigms, patterns, and empower marginalized voices. Only through this reconnection with history can we forge a stronger, more inclusive identity that embraces the complexities of our shared heritage. In closing, the lecture on the subaltern view of Caribbean history provides a compelling platform to re-examine the region's past by critically questioning established narratives, particularly those influenced by European history and philosophy. Students were encouraged to challenge prevailing assumptions and explore alternative perspectives. The outline list of influential Caribbean works and thinkers showcase the profound impact these voices have had on shaping Caribbean life, philosophy and thought, 1003, and historical interpretation. Ultimately, the lecture highlighted the importance of critically reevaluating our history to reinvent ourselves in the 21st century and forge a more inclusive and nuanced understanding of the Caribbean's rich cultural tapestry that leads to a competitive advantage, or our competitive advantages, if that can be derived. That was the summary of the last class. And of course, next week when we come back, next week, Monday, if I'm hoping to have Brian Concanen here, but if Brian Concanen doesn't come, then we will continue by with the lecture looking at we'll begin with, we'll continue with CLR James. Did we do George Padmore the last time? I don't know. And we'll go to CLR James, V.S. Naipaul, and then we will end with Franz Fanon and then pick up from there after that. So the next class, we will do those, we will pick up from CLR James, V.S. Naipaul, and Franz Fanon, which is quite powerful. And we will continue to use Homi Bhabha's book because Homi Bhabha taught speaks so glowingly about Frantz Fanon and V.S. Naipaul as well. Oh, the next, after Frantz Fanon, the next person we talk about is V.S. Naipaul. Okay, so the thing we're going to look at C.L.R. James, V.S. Naipaul, Frantz Fanon, and wait, V.S. Naipaul is on here? Oh, yes, it is. I didn't realize. C.L.R. James, V.S. Naipaul, Frantz Fanon. Perfect. We will talk about, I will use Homi Bhabha's book because Homi Bhabha does a splendid job, okay, in critiquing and uncovering and unearthing in a post-colonial way these thinkers. We will look at them. We'll continue, but just before we do that, on Monday, we will, if Brian is here, we will have Brian do a presentation and you get a chance to ask him questions. Give us an update. What's going on with Haiti? What's going on with the lawsuit regarding the debt? What's going on with this de facto president and so on? There's some new developments. Because as I said, there's a practical component of this course. The practical component is what we're talking about when we talk about the UIHS. And what we're talking about when we bring Brian Conkin in the show, and we are fighting. What we learn, to whom much is given, much is required. You leave this classroom now with more information and awareness, and you go and bring that light to wherever you are and wherever you go in the Caribbean, and to people you meet. Okay, and let them read the petition. I know some of you haven't read it, and I know some of you haven't signed it. There is no pressure. I'm not pressuring any of you to do anything. Okay, it's up to you. But I hope that you will consider it. And one thing before I go that I want, I did this at the last class, Caribbean theology. This is Caribbean theology. It should not have said that. I wanted to do a presentation on writing, but I don't think I have time for this. So next week, the first class, I'm gonna do this. Interaction paper, reflections and weekly material. When I ask you to write weekly reflection paper, it should follow a particular flow, and I described it I have a PowerPoint presentation here that speaks to it, but I don't think we have time for that. So when we come back next week, I will begin with this. And it just, I think it's just 6 pages, a 6-page slide. Okay, but I think so we will talk about this when we come back before Brian presents. Okay. All right, and that's it for class for today. And then following next week, that's next week, Monday. Then Wednesday, again, what we're doing, life and death. Life and death. I can't wait for you guys to get into that. Well, that's it for class today. You guys were amazing. You guys have an assignment, interaction paper for this week. By the way, the interaction paper that you have, did I give you homework for Monday to interact with some of the ideas of the last class with the UIHS? Do an interaction paper talking about their presentation, what jumps out. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, just based on the presentation of UIHS and the understanding of heritage. How now would you approach the assignment to trace your heritage? That's it. How now would you approach it? That's it. Okay. How now would you approach it? Okay. So I think that was the thing you guys were supposed to continue. So do a reflection, do an interaction on that, and the question I asked. That's it for class. Thank you guys. And then there's another homework I want you to do, but it's too much. So, but what I'm going to do is, if you want an extra credit, so I'm going to give an extra credit, you can add this to the interaction for this week. In a small way, my early life was caught on the crossroads that marked the end of an empire. Empire meaning the post-colonial drive towards the new blah, 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 blah. I'll send this excerpt to you guys.
Sir,
Yes.
before you go, sir, I would like to remind them about there's a final paper. I'm not sure if it's going to be a group or an individual one. We can let them know. So they has to do an essay final paper.
Yes, I don't know I think you may have gotten bumped off when we were talking about it, but I talked about it in passing earlier. But yes, I said to you guys will do a final essay paper. The final essay paper will be in your groups. So the groups that you just have, the group that you just formulated, that will be the group that you will work in order to complete the essay, the final 25-page essay. Okay, you will do a 25-page essay based on a topic related to the class. It could be a question from the syllabus that I have asked you guys to peruse, or it could be this while in the class, you might be intrigued about something. I leave it open to you guys as well. Okay, I will give you some topics you could do, like on urban Indian heritage and the challenge of Jamaican heritage. Okay, you could probably do something about that. You could make it into an ethnographic, into an anthropological work where you guys in your own groups, okay, are now having to revisit and research your own history and your heritage. Could be that. It could be something on compensation. There's a article I wrote, which I will share with you at the next class, or the following the next class, that looks at unpaid compensation. The same issue that deals with the fact that the same issue, Jamaicans slaves were freed in 1833. But it wasn't until 1865 that they received the proclamation that they were free. So does it mean that they are owed? Does it mean that they are owed any compensation? If they were freed, why were they working without compensation for almost 33 years? That's the class for today, guys. We will talk about that.
Sir, will you email the homework?
I will email the homework, yes. Yes,
right.
I will do that. And Chantel does a very good job in reminding me. So I will email, and I will also do a summary of this class and send it out to you guys. I have my work cut out for me. And she's, okay. What you guys can do is you guys can watch the film and come up with your own summary. Like say, for example, UIHS. You can watch the entire film for a video that we did, a lecture, and then and do a summary, an interaction paper based on that, on the presentation of the UIHS. You can do that. Okay. I'm giving, okay, you guys can do that. But this week looks at the issue of heritage, the issue of identity, and what we're hearing coming from the UIHS. And you guys, and that is, you see why I gave you the homework. I gave you the homework the first or second week in preparation for a presentation that we had on Monday. So it was quite profound. And now you guys were going to go back and rework your homework, or maybe approach it a different way. You guys can do that if you want, or give me an interaction based on the presentation on Monday. That's it. Now I will give you extra credit for an additional assignment that I will ask you, an extra 5 credits. We will give, okay? Meaning, what does Homi Bhabha means by what I had said? What does she mean by that? What is she getting at? Okay? And I will send you, though, I will type it up and send that to you guys so that you guys can have it. Or you can do that in lieu of the other assignment I asked you in terms of the heritage, or to write a paper summarizing and interacting with the UIHS. You could do that, okay? Or you could do this one and that one, or just this one by itself. I will explain that in an email, not tonight, but tomorrow, okay? Thank you, guys. And if you remember, the text for this class is, this is one of the texts we're using for this class. Homi Bhabha, okay? Location of Culture. In addition to my book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance, which is available in ebook and hardcover, paperback, and the audio. It's a very important book. It was reviewed as an erudite analysis. I'm not selling myself, well, in a sense I am, but I want you to read the book because it's written by yours truly, by your own professor, by your own Jamaican, by your, okay, people from your own college. That is that is a cosmopolitan. Okay, you want to read it. You want, to develop your insights and so on. Okay, that's it. And it's based on data and statistics. But take care, guys. It was such an amazing class. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and to talk with you. And I hope that you will continue to grow and to develop in your own life. And to whom much is given, much is required. So I pray that you will be empowered to empower others. I pray that you will be so blessed, that you'll be so moved, that God would move upon you and give you content. If you ask God to give you content, he'll give you content, trust me. So I pray that God will bless you and keep you. Open up your understanding, open up your knowledge and your wisdom, and give you wisdom. And I pray that the students will be able to understand the concepts and be passionate about this course and what they're doing at Jamaica Theological Seminary. I want to pray for the school, JTS. JTS is still struggling financially. I understand earlier today that they have a group of I think they are renting part of the school and so on, and majority of the programs are online. I'm not sure what's going on. But the school over the past couple of years have been struggling financially. And I pray, oh God, that you would bless the school so that they can be a beacon of light to the world. I pray that you will bless the school financially and the students who come to the school, their finances as well. And you will make JTS revolutionary, continuing to develop academia and to spread the gospel of love. We pray for those who are struggling with major decisions in their lives. Some people might be dealing with different issues, family, work, school. People might have situations that's just so difficult. Some students, I remember some students couldn't go to a class because of some problems. People are dealing with so much today in the 21st century. There's so many things to worry about and to deal with. And even in Jamaica, Lord God, with violence and crime and the issue of dependency and lack, I pray that you grow and strengthen the people's creative juices and our competitive edge. Help me to facilitate the course in a way that the students will understand, but not just to understand, but a way that will move them to not inaction, but to action. We tell you thanks for all that you are doing in our lives and that you will continue to do. And I pray, and somebody prayed some time ago, and they prayed it and it happened in such a way that they write it and put it in the Bible. So that experience is normative for me. So he says, knock and the door shall be open. Seek and ye shall find. Ask and it shall be given. Have we ever asked for a bread and you get a rock? Means that God is in tune and is responsive and sensitive to the issues of our lives. There are many people who may feel challenged by that piece of news. There are many people who because they are constantly praying and they're constantly not seeing any change in their lives. And many go away leaving, becoming more doubtful. But, oh God, I pray that there are times when we don't see what is happening and what you're doing. And life is not easy. Life is complex. And so I pray that you will help us to deal with the complexities of this life. And that you will meet the students in this class where they are hurting and where they need you, God. Send them a messenger, send them opportunities and help them and teach them to take advantage of the opportunities. Opportunities may come one way, but it may come another way. But may we be alert, may we be open, may we be discerning. So we ask, continue to bless these students in a very dynamic and profound way. And even now, whatever needs they have, I pray, Lord God, that nothing is too small for God. And I may pray that, and you are than that which nothing greater can be conceived or imagined. So intervene in our lives in such a profound and significant way even now. And may we see the movement of God and testify of this amazing movement of God in our lives, so that others may come to the awareness of the omniscience, the omnipresence, and the omnipotence of God. We tell you thanks. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, guys.
Amen.
Thank you. Take care. God bless you guys.
Good night, sir.
Good night. Be safe.